I have always hated being cold. I would do anything to avoid it, and so for me to now be running monk, I see the irony. But I've always been really into the biohacking, health optimization side of things, and I do a lot of the holistic stuff like workout, sauna and stuff. I eat raw frozen liver most mornings, so I'm not averse to doing difficult things.
Laura Fullerton is a biohacker, an entrepreneur who has successfully exited 2 companies and is currently making waves as the founder and CEO of Monk. Monk is on the verge of revolutionising the wellness industry with the introduction of the world's first smart ice bath, seen as a remedy for the afflictions of 21st century living, anxiety, stress, insomnia, and inflammation, to name but a few. What do you think the hardest thing about embracing cold water actually is?
I guess you almost have to just get over your...
Welcome once again.
Thank you for having me.
Absolute pleasure. Can't believe it's literally a year to the day.
I know, since we recorded the first podcast. We've learnt the lesson this time. No cold water therapy straight before.
We were in the Serpentine.
Yeah, and then a loud cafe afterwards, shivering.
A really loud cafe. And I remember it was I know it's always cold. Even when you go in the water in summer, like my listeners will obviously know, I go in, 31 days in January, but probably 3 or 4 times a week outside of that. But even when you go into cold water in the summer, the initial reaction on your skin is, it's cold, your brain's telling you. But when we went in last February, I reckon I remember it was bloody freezing.
It was. I think it was about 4 degrees.
Yeah.
And we stayed in for quite a long time as well. When
We
you're
did.
chatting and you just
the
lose track of
videographer
things.
was there, so,
Had to do it for the content.
Exactly. So people who want to know, the story of how you set out on this journey can go back a year and listen and watch that episode now. But interested to know how you went from having this personal aversion to cold water or, all cold things to being, a real advocate for cold water therapy and ultimately launching your own ice bath company. So was there a screw it, just do it moment along that journey that set you on the path that you're on today?
Yes, there was. So the quick backstory is that I have always hated being cold. I would do anything to avoid it. And so for me to now be running monk, I see the irony.
Yeah.
But I've always been really into the biohacking, health optimization side of things. And, I do a lot of the holistic stuff like workout, sauna and stuff. I eat raw frozen liver most mornings. So I'm not averse to doing difficult things.
Yeah. Is that difficult, by the way?
I actually make it a lot easier. The key is to have it frozen, chop it up small, so almost like a steak tartare.
Yeah.
Some fermented hot sauce, and just get it done.
And what does that do for you?
Energy, it's incredible. It's supposed to be the most nutrient-dense food in the planet.
Is it?
So
I didn't know that.
Yes, get rid of the multivitamins, just eat raw frozen liver. But yeah, so I'm used to doing hard things, but I'd never touched being cold water therapy because I thought, why would anyone do that? And then I got invited to this Breathwork and ice bath workshop. And honestly, I went along thinking, I'll just skip the ice bath bit. And I got bullied into doing it. And then afterwards, I just felt so good. And then I just wanted more of it. But the thing I found is that it was just really inaccessible, which sounds stupid because it's cold water. You should get it out of your tap.
We're in Britain.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, one thing led to another. And I actually just wanted to make my own ice bath. And I was speaking to my brother who's, amazing at engineering and building things. And then I had a few friends saying, well, actually, I want one as well. Can you figure out how to do it for me? But the screw it, just do it moment for me was when I discovered this private Facebook group. And at the time, there were 6,000 people in it, which I thought was a lot. And I actually looked the other day, and I think there's nearly 80,000 people in this group now.
Wow, so it's more than 10x.
Yeah, and it's just dedicated to people learning how to transform their own chest freezers into a DIY ice bath. And that, for me, was the moment where I thought, if there's this many people willing to get electrocuted, have a really ugly product, clearly there's something not meeting their needs. So that really was the catalyst behind Monk, where I thought, well, I've got to create it.
Okay, and to create a more aesthetically pleasing version at the same time.
Yeah, with better functionality as well. And in all honesty, I've never built hardware before. I've never built software. So building hardware and software that has to talk to each other.
At the same time.
Yeah, it's quite a big ask. But yeah, here we are.
And recording this on the last day in February in 2024. Where are you at as a business? Where is Monk Ice Bath? Where can people get hold of them?
So we have just placed our first production order. So we're now in production, and we are going to have product in market this June, which is such a big milestone for us because, with product development, it always takes so much longer than you think. And I remember people saying to me, with hardware, however long you think it's going to take, triple the timeline and double the cost.
Wow.
And I was like, that will never happen to us. And it's basically textbook exactly
Really?
what's happened.
Is it?
Yeah. But it's been a labour of love. So yeah, now we're at the point where we've just gone live with pre-orders. So we're preparing for the launch, and yeah, just getting ready to really show the world what we can do.
Amazing. And what do you think the hardest thing about embracing cold water actually is? Because is it more in the mind than it is in the actual?
Oh yeah, for sure.
I agree.
For sure.
Yeah.
When just everything inside you is screaming to get out and run.
Yeah.
So actually having to I guess you almost have to just get over your mindset and everything in your body telling you to get out and just really kind of take control. And it's like that top-down control.
And it doesn't matter how many people you tell about the benefits and how good you feel afterwards, and that buzz that you get that literally lasts for hours afterwards. The only way I can explain it is it's like having a quadruple espresso and I'm literally fired up and super focused for hours, but that still doesn't persuade anyone else I know outside of my immediate circle to do it.
Yeah. You've got to really want to do it. But even like when I go to plunge sometimes, I'll sit on the edge of the ice bath and I almost have to gaslight myself into getting in. Like, you love this. This is your job.
Yeah. And I not meant to sound sexist, but when we're at Branksome, which you'll know, Branksome Dean, Branksome Chine last Saturday, and getting in the water, and it had been about 4 days since I'd got in, and this guy swam next to us, and he went, Irish guy, I won't do the accent, but he said, "You 6 lads, a week ago there were 3 girls here, you were making 10 times the amount of noise than they made getting in the water." And I went, "You wouldn't believe we've been doing this for 4 years either, mate, would you?" And it was just that resistance is, real, and it manifests itself in the protestations. And there was also waves that were about 6 foot high hitting us in the face at the same time as well. So I think I prefer it when it's like, I prefer cold water therapy, like in that kind of environment, in that it's really wavy and the weather's really violent compared to, for example, having a cold shower. Because people say, "Oh, you have a cold shower," and I'm like, I find that harder. And maybe it's because you're kind of assaulted on all senses, like your sight, your hearing, your feeling, etc. Even your taste, if you leave your mouth open and you end up swallowing some of the seawater. But I find that easier. You don't even notice the cold as much.
I completely agree with you that I love doing it in nature. Like, that would be my favourite thing. But for me, I'm a blue sky kind of girl.
Yeah, okay.
Like, the thought of it being horrible outside, waves crashing in my face, I don't like that.
Yeah.
But I absolutely agree with you. Showers are harder. And I don't know why. I think, like you say, when the water's coming from everywhere, I'm dodging it like something out of the Matrix. But when you're getting into cold water, like as into, a full body of cold water, you get hit in the face by it. And it's also harder just to jump out, where in the shower you can just duck and dive. And I guess also for you, the motivation with Monk is that, unlike myself, who has the good fortune to live by the sea, most of the population are pretty landlocked and live in cities. So that's not an option to get out into nature unless they do so at the weekend and they're prepared to travel. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I love going to the Serpentine. I have an amazing group of friends and we all go down and have a coffee after, but it takes like 2.5 hours out of my day. It's just not practical. And I want to be able to do it quickly and easily. So that's what we're really doing, is making cold water therapy more convenient. And why do you think it's so, it appears to me anyway, so much more ingrained in the public consciousness now in 2024 than it was even going back to 2020 in lockdown, for example? Why is that? Is that all down to Wim Hof, or is there, I think he's been amazing for growing the movement, for sure. But I think there's also just wider macro forces at play. Like chronic illnesses are rising. And actually, look at what the pandemic did. Cases of anxiety and depression nearly doubled. And I think it made people realise that they're actually in control of their health. And also there's other movements where people are looking for more natural, holistic solutions rather than pharmaceuticals. And see, I think there's a lot of other things at play here that have led people to at least try cold water therapy.
Yeah, and I can't even remember what put it on my radar other than two friends who had started doing it about 20 odd days before me. And then I was just like, oh yeah, can anyone join? And the next day someone else came, and then the next day someone else came. And then for me now, it's something you just mentioned there. It's that kind of community that, and I know there's just pockets and pockets and pockets of people around the UK. You've got your own group as well, your own community that you're building. And for me, it is that feeling of that shared experience, that community. And for us, it's great. As you said, we will do that now on a Saturday. We now have a brand new restaurant on the beach there. We'll go for a coffee Saturday and Sunday. But for a lot of people, it's a solitary experience. So if you can bring that sense of community to them and making them feel that they're part of a shared something, that's got to be pretty powerful, eh?
Yeah. And the thing I love, this is a bit of a tangent, but going down to the coast or wherever you have those pockets of people that just go and cold water swim, is that there are all kinds of ages. And it surprises me that there's so many people in their 70s and 80s
Absolutely.
who it's just part of their everyday.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. And I used to, being spent 20 years on the South Coast now, you used to see, people in their 70s coming out of the sea in, bathing suits with a hat on, and you just saying, who's that lunatic? It's just a kind of throwaway comment, but you think, why on earth? And everyone else is in coats, hats, scarves.
Yeah. And now you're one of them.
And now I'm one of them. I know. It's crazy,
How
isn't it?
times change.
I know, they really do, don't they? And why do you think wellness is cool again? Or did wellness being cool ever go out of fashion anyway?
I think it's definitely become cool, for sure. Like, there's so many amazing places opening up now where you can go and do ice baths and sauna, and you do classes, and it's almost like a nightclub.
Yeah,
and we're seeing a lot of that in the US and Canada, and it's starting to come over to Europe.
Okay.
So there's so many more options popping up, and just embracing the fact that you don't have to go out and just drink and feel awful the next day.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the things I think that led me into the world of biohacking. I remember one day, you just wake up and you feel a bit groggy, and something just clicks. And I was like, oh, but that's not normal. I don't have to feel like that. And then just went down this rabbit hole of discovering, what it was that was stopping me from feeling amazing. And as soon as you start to feel incredible, you just want more of it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my experience with it anyway.
When did you first discover what is biohacking for somebody who's listening and has heard the term but doesn't know what it means? How would your personal interpretation of it?
I mean, I think the quote or the description everyone quotes is about taking control of the environment inside and outside of you. Mm-hmm. But for me, it's just very much going back to basics. Do you know what? I have to think about this, how I'd actually describe it. So people always say, what are the biohacks that you use? I'm like, I don't know, because it's so
part of your life now.
Ingrained in the everyday. But I mean, I guess a lot of the things I do is really for optimizing sleep. For me, sleep is just number one priority.
Okay.
And then I think one of the things that really changed things for me was trying to live in line with my infradian rhythm, which is, how it's basically like the female menstrual cycle. You're designed to feel amazing in all of your 4 phases, but we're just not taught about it. And it's wild, throughout your cycle, which is your 28 days. So how guys and females as well, you have your circadian rhythm, which is your 24-hour cycle. So females have that as well. But on top of that, we have the 28 days, which just makes things more complicated.
Yeah.
But even within that, your brain chemistry shifts by 25%, which is an amazing gift. So in certain phases, your left and right brain hemisphere are more balanced. And in another phase, you're more creative. So when you learn to actually tap into that, it's incredible.
Yes.
And so I tailor things like my exercise around that, my nutrition around
Do
that.
you?
And
Interesting. So Georgie, who came to the biohacking show with me, she was the first person to tell me about that. I didn't know anything about that. Yet I'm the father of 2 teenage girls, and I'm like, okay. And one's in a performing arts college and is wants to be a dancer, the 17-year-old. And I'm just thinking, she's coming home and she's complaining of, shin splints. She's literally coming down 5 minutes before we leave to go to school and literally just grabbing something to eat and then having like a sausage roll for lunch and then getting a panda raisin after she's finished school to eat. And I'm just thinking, why isn't this stuff taught?
Yeah.
And twice I've mentioned it to school. I've literally, my wife was like, don't say that. They're not interested. And I was just like, what do you do about nutrition and hydration? Because for me, that is such a major, if you're teaching them how to perform at an elite level, because where she goes, all of the performing arts colleges come from around the country to teach classes to, basically talent scout as to who they then want to come to them for the next couple of years. And I'm like, so if you're teaching somebody sport at an elite level, such a major part of that is what you're putting in the body.
Yeah.
But if you're not telling them what to put in the body, how do they know? Because all they're getting fed is a diet of TikTok and Instagram of influencers that they see eating, I don't know, bloody McDonald's and drinking Coca-Cola. I know I'm massively generalizing, but...
Yeah, it is wild. It's...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, why isn't it, similar to financial education, isn't it? It's like, why isn't this kind of thing taught in school? It's such an archaic system.
Mm-hmm.
Hate it. Winds me up.
Oh, same. But it's even things like when I use cold water therapy, I will tailor around my cycle as well.
Wow.
And people are starting to talk about it more. I keep seeing content popping up on Instagram with people saying females shouldn't use ice baths, which is... it's such an infuriating blanket statement, because it's the equivalent of me saying females shouldn't go in the gym or females shouldn't do HIIT classes, when actually it's entirely beneficial, but just used throughout.
When you do it.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's what I found interesting, or what Georgie was saying, she just like co-written I guess you'd call it a cookbook with an author, and it was all designed around different foods, designed around your cycle, like what you should be eating according to the seasons, and this is when you should be in a nourishing phase, and this is when you're like spring, when you're blooming, and these are the foods you should be having. I found it fascinating, absolutely. As a father of two girls, I just thought that they should know this stuff.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I think everyone should know this, because even if you're a guy, you've likely got a wife, a sister.
It'd be super helpful. Yeah, it really would. It really would. Interesting. So timeline-wise, when did you first become aware of, like you said, you woke up one day and felt, not great, and you wanted to do something about it. But how long ago was it on your awareness?
Gosh, it must have been maybe 10 years ago.
Oh, wow, okay.
And I remember hearing about bulletproof coffee, and I just thought, oh, it's just coffee that's supposed to taste delicious. And I remember having a mug of it I think it was Planet Organic, and it was disgusting, and I didn't really think anything of it. And I was talking to one of my friends, he was like, but there's more to it. There's like this whole diet. And I just remember him saying it so clearly in my kitchen, and that was just like this rabbit hole that I then entered.
Right, 10 years ago. So that's the first thing that I became aware of, funnily enough, was bulletproof coffee.
Oh,
as well.
really?
Yeah. And then I became, I was doing 2 of those a day, and I then go and have a normal coffee, and I didn't like a normal coffee. I became so used to, and bulletproof coffee, for those who don't know, I mean, you can add different things to it, but we're talking the same thing when it's like coconut oil, and then you can add like butter.
Yeah, MCT butter, and I add collagen in as well.
So
you've got like 20 grams of protein, which is pretty decent.
Yeah, okay.
But I love it.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, and I guess, like anything, it's an acquired taste, but once you had it, it's like I can't have anything else then.
Yeah, it's just part of my ritual.
Yeah. And I think coffee is very ritual based anyway, isn't it? So a lot of people like that. Interesting. Who's biohacking for? Everybody?
Yeah, I think everybody. I think it's really easy to think of biohacking and really expensive gadgets and blood testing and stuff that can absolutely be really pricey, but so much of it is just about going back to basics, like you mentioned earlier: proper hydration, exercise, grounding, like optimizing your circadian rhythm by getting light in the morning and just trying to avoid blue light at night. And there's so many basic things that really can make a world of difference. And for me, sleep was one of the biggest ones.
Okay.
I now just try and safeguard my sleep, because originally especially in the early days of being a founder, you know, you're working crazy hours, and sleep is something that happens once you finish your day, or like once you finish your work. But actually, when I flipped it on its head and I was like, no, this is my like 8-hour window. I need like this time to wind down. Actually, you end up being more productive the next day once you've had a good amount of sleep. And yeah, so now I take my sleep very seriously.
So you guard that unless you're
Yeah.
at a summit with Richard Branson or something like that.
Yes.
Okay.
That is the one time that I don't guard it.
And okay, so what time do you go? I need 8 hours, so you're what? I'm in bed at 10 and I get up at 6.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Similar to me.
Yeah.
And I just found it's a really tricky one, isn't it? Because things start creeping in, and before you know it, 10's 10:30, 10's 11, 10's, and I got to a stage it was like 11 something, and I'm like, no. And just that extra hour and a bit, even without alcohol, it'd feel like shit the next day.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It makes
You feel like
such
you've
a
been out
difference.
drinking.
Yes, I noticed this recently. I think it was. I've got a couple of overnight flights, which I shouldn't do because I never get decent sleep on them, and I will feel horrific the next day, like I have had a massive night out. It's crazy that just sleep can do that to you.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you guard that religiously.
Yeah, and
you
just
got
loads
your
of
Whoop,
rules.
I see.
Oh yeah, Whoop and Aura.
I read
Yeah,
that. I read
doubling up.
Aura. So tell me, what's the difference then? What does Aura do?
Well, so I think Aura is the number one for sleep for me, and I've just used it for, I don't know, 5 years, maybe more. And I actually only got Whoop a few months ago, so I'm just road testing that. But the thing that Aura doesn't really do is fitness, which obviously is what Whoop is really good at.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure how great Whoop is at sleep.
Okay.
There's quite a difference between the two.
Oh, is there?
Yeah, not much, but maybe 20 minutes either side of deep and REM.
Okay.
HRV is always pretty much exactly the
Is
same,
it?
maybe like 1 point difference.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I road tested the Whoop, and I came to the conclusion it wasn't for me.
Oh, really?
Just because I'm the type of person, I get like hung up on fixated on numbers. Whether it's like checking it's like a standing joke. I'm like the weatherman, so we've just been like snowboarding. And it's like literally Alex has been checking the weather for 2 months. The weather 2 months ago will have no correlation to what it is tomorrow on the slopes, but I've always done it since I was a kid. And it's the same with, I was literally checking my Whoop so often. I just thought this actually isn't going to be a good thing for my mental health, really.
Yeah, fair
But
enough.
I totally get all the benefits. And I did it maybe 2 years ago, so maybe I could road test it again for a month or so. But I really enjoyed it. And you know, that I love that idea around optimizing your body. And I love that idea kind of coming back to taking control of your physical, mental, emotional well-being, rather than just being a passenger, instead being proactive and not just being reactive and having your life run for you and just accepting everything that comes to you, but actually making conscious decisions.
Yeah.
It sounds like that's what you've definitely
I think so,
done.
yeah. Like I don't often actually check it. It happened the other day when someone's like, "Oh, what was your score last night?" I'm like, "Oh, I don't know." And I sometimes it'll go for, I don't know, 3-4 days without checking it. But where it adds real value for me is if I wanted to test a new sleep supplement or routine or something, because I've got that base level data, I can then see if it actually makes a difference. And I think the thing that was really interesting for me with Whoop is that I never had any idea what zone I was in.
Yeah.
And I also never run, but I've just started doing a couple of runs on treadmill and I'm just watching my live heart rate. It's fascinating.
Yeah, no, it is.
Yeah.
It is, yeah. I've just stopped running. Retorn my meniscus.
Oh, no.
Literally on the first day after rehabbing it for 7 weeks.
Oh, that's savage. Sorry.
First day of snowboarding. Yeah, literally blew up like a balloon. And the second time I've had to cancel the London Marathon now. So,
Oh,
yeah.
that's painful.
Yeah. Well, someone said to me the other day that you should only run on a treadmill. And I was like that because of, hard surfaces, impact, soft tissue, joints, all the rest of it. I don't know how much factors in that, but it's an interesting one. What would you recommend to somebody then, for example, like me, who has experienced and enjoys cold water therapy, enjoys hot therapy, because we've now got like down by me, there's a sauna on
Oh yeah,
the
you're
beach of
really
Sandbanks,
lucky.
and then there's 2 saunas now over in Studland,
Nice.
the water sports there, and was very intrigued by lots of things that I saw, tasted at what's the event called again? That Tim Biohacker does.
Oh, the Health Optimization Summit.
Health Optimization
Yes.
Summit. What would you recommend to somebody? Probably like, I don't know, it's probably millions of people now, isn't it? You've tried cold water therapy, love the benefits, love that idea of, you know, taking back some control in their lives, and, you know, setting out the day as they want to set it, really. And it's that thing, if this is the hardest thing I do today, then the rest of the day is going to be a breeze. You know, what else would you advise? What kind of next steps that you found have been beneficial to you that somebody would take?
What is in on top of using hot and cold?
Yeah. What's been beneficial to you?
Ooh, for me, breath work.
Yeah,
And
I did that for the first time at that event.
Oh, did you?
It
How
was
did you find it?
crazy. I was literally I was like levitating in a jungle. Like Georgie was like going to me, oh my God, people only normally get that like after doing this for a very long time, Alex. And I'm like, well, I was there.
Wow. Yeah, you can have real like
It
out
was
of body
powerful.
experiences.
Yeah.
I've done it before, and I don't know where I've been, but it's not in my body.
Right, there you go.
Yeah.
I could see, I literally did it twice there. And the second time was equally good, but wasn't anything like that the first one. And I don't know if it was the person taking the class and the music
the guide and
the,
everything.
the guide. Yeah, I found that. So yeah, I think breathwork, that's a good shout.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
yeah.
I notice when I do it, which hasn't been regularly enough recently, for a while I was in like a really great routine doing it daily, and it had a real impact on my HRV. And I can always tell when I've done it. And my respiratory rate as well drops down.
And do you do it on your own, or do you do like a guided?
I do a guided
Yeah.
breath work. So there's a guy I really like, and his app is called Breathe with James. He's fantastic. And also Jamie Clements, he has a couple of guided
I know
breathwork
Jamie
sessions.
Clements.
Oh, do you? He's amazing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the ones
I
I
helped
use...
him with his podcast.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
I actually
Yeah.
spoke to him earlier today.
Did you?
Yeah, so
Oh,
we're
say
collaborating
hello.
on something we're doing with Fairmont Hotels. We've got a partnership coming up.
Have you?
So he's been helping us
Great
with that.
hotel
yeah.
chain as well.
Yeah.
Fairmont.
Yeah. At their Windsor Park site. So you have
Oh,
to come to that.
okay. Been to the one in San Francisco.
Ooh, check you. Touche.
It used to be opposite our Virgin Crew Hotel. So
Ah.
I used to go to the top of the Fairmont for drinks because I had like the best views around San Francisco.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Did not know
that's
that.
a cool collab.
Yeah, yeah.
Jamie's a lovely guy as well.
Oh, he's brilliant.
He's just, funnily enough, I only thought of him the other day because a friend of mine called Mark Whittle, who has a podcast called Take Flight, I believe Jamie's one of Mark's clients, like coaching clients.
Oh,
And I saw them
nice.
like do some kind of post together, and I was just like, I remember Jamie. Yeah. Cool.
But yeah, so I rate both of those two for breathwork, but it's
Okay.
much more, I think by the sounds of things, the one you did, it's a very, I don't know how to describe it, like uplifting, upregulating kind of breath
It
work.
was, yeah.
Whereas
yeah.
the ones that these two
Yeah.
do, it's much more like down-regulating for your nervous system, like
Okay.
connected, coherent breathing and stuff. And I just really enjoy it. I find that has made a big difference.
And what would you say is the difference between doing meditation and doing breath work for those who don't know?
I personally find it really hard to meditate because my mind is going in a million different places.
Yeah.
So for me, breath work, it's a little bit more active.
Okay.
And I still get into that state where I don't know, it feels very meditative for me.
Yeah.
But maybe it's more active meditation.
Yeah. Yeah, I find it meditative experience anyway, but yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure any experts on breathwork or meditation will be listening to this thinking that is entirely wrong. But that's
It's
that's
personal
been my
experience, and that's the thing with all of it, isn't it? It's personal experience.
Yeah.
How it relates to you. Yeah, okay, interesting. So let's talk about vision. Interested to know. So what was your original vision with Monk, and how has that changed in the couple of years?
Oh, it's definitely changed a lot, because when I set out to create Monk, it was more about the hardware. It was just more about having this really beautiful bath with great functionality. And at some point it was like, oh, we need to have a companion app to kind of guide people through it. And at that point we weren't really sure on what the role the app would take. But what we found out really quickly is that the biggest issue with cold water therapy is not not the accessibility, but it's that people don't know how to use it, like safely or effectively. And while it is, booming in popularity, people are also not doing it in a really safe way. And it's a really powerful tool, but it's got to be treated with respect.
Yeah.
And so that's where the app comes in for us. So we've got a load of different guided programs, depending on why you're doing it. Because if you were doing it for, muscle recovery or mental health, you'd use it in a really different way, but people don't know that.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, let's stop there. So it's interesting. Like in my group who go into the sea, everyone's got their own different reasons for doing it. And when I started, it was because I was training for marathon at the time, and it was really good for inflammation, I found. Yeah, another of the guys really struggling with his mental health, with anxiety, etc. He was doing it because he found that fantastic release from doing that. Everyone's got their different reasons. So, tell me about that a little bit more then. That's really interesting.
Yeah, so there's so much nuance to it. But say, really broadly, if you're doing it for muscle recovery, you'd typically use it at a much higher temperature, like 10 to 15 degrees, and you'd stay in for longer. Whereas if you were doing it for, mental health to feel amazing, anxiety, whatever your reason is, you'd likely go to lower temperature, but also do it for a short amount of time.
Didn't know that.
Yeah, but then there's it gets so much more kind of in-depth, because depending on what kind of training you're doing, whether it's recovery or whether you're doing, endurance, whether you're doing strength, again, you'd use it in a different way. And there's been a lot of talk about how you shouldn't do it straight after a workout if you're just trying to grow muscle. And there's absolutely truth to that. So you want to leave it for a few hours.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this time last year, I did like 3 months, like small group training with a guy. I used to be... he's a strength and conditioning coach, basically. Amazing gym. And he was saying to me, I don't know if cold water therapy is that good for if you're going in straight after. I said, no, I'm going in at the beginning of the morning, and then a couple of hours later, I'm coming to you, and that's it.
Nice.
But he was like saying there is science behind that. I didn't know that. Okay.
But if you were just doing it pure for, so say for muscle building, you want to leave it a few hours after, because it will blunt the hormetic response. So people say that could impact your muscle growth. And then you've got other people who are, experts in the field that will say, well, not enough. You're only doing it for 30 seconds, 2 minutes, whatever. It's not actually going to impact it. Yeah. But then also it depends on what you're doing. Like say, for example, if you're training and you just want inflammation to be cut down as much as possible so you can go out and run again the next day. Yeah. And that's the same often, say if you're, I don't know, a boxer and you've got an upcoming fight and it's just, you just want to train hard and hard and hard, that you might use it like that, and you might use it straight after. Whereas, so there's so much nuance.
You could be getting some real science behind the boxing part of it as well, couldn't you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Very good. So your vision's changed a lot, that you said. So it's gone from creating the hardware to now harnessing the software. Yeah. And, we've seen personalization become more and more part of a lot of businesses' customization of what they do. Mm-hmm. You're obviously embracing that as well. So maybe talk us through a little bit about how somebody can personalize their experience of having a monk ice bath.
Yeah, so the app will personalize the programs to you. So say, for example, one of the first program we've got, which is like our signature program, is called the acclimatization program. And that's really designed to take beginners from 10 degrees slowly down to 3 over a number of weeks and sessions. And if someone is finding those sessions really hard, they'll get put further back or further forward if it's too easy. But I think what's really interesting about the app is that it integrates with just over 40 different wearables. So if you wear Whoop, Aura and things like that, so you can actually pull through important metrics like HRV and sleep and see how monk impacts that over time. And then for us, there's going to be a long learning curve. And we're collecting so many different data points, but we'll be then looking at, okay, what is that? What patterns are we seeing? And figuring out how we can then use that to personalize someone's experience. And actually going back to our example earlier, talking about females and like their menstrual cycle, if we're connected to various period trackers and things like that, we can actually say to people, you know what, now's probably the time to like pause the brakes. And equally, if we can see someone's HRV is completely tanked, so there's that level of personalization where you can really close the loop that will be coming in future. So that's also
That's very
really
exciting then, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What's the biggest breakthrough that you think you've had over the last, how many years? Remind me.
So we started,
4, 5?
3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because we've been going in product development for about 2.5 now.
Okay.
So, yeah.
What's been the biggest breakthrough since you started on this journey, would you say?
Breakthrough, what, being like a milestone, or
Yeah.
I think possibly putting up, it sounds like a really small milestone to the outside world, but putting in that first PO, our first production order, that's been a really big milestone, because
Yeah.
getting to that point, there's a lot of blood, sweat and tears that go on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
I mean, there's been so many great milestones and breakthroughs. I mean, some, just even like some of the investors we've got on board have just been the biggest, how would I describe it? Let me say that again.
Advocates?
Yeah. Just some of the investors we've got on have become the biggest advocates, but also just been such a, almost like a pat on the back to us that they believe in it. Like one of the co-founders of Aura Ring, boxer Anthony
really?
Joshua. Yeah. So we've had some amazing investors come on board, from multi-billion pound founders and technologists and athletes. And yeah, it's incredible to have them believe in something that you've created.
How do you get in front? So, yeah, mention a couple of those people again then. So people, who can you say that you've got on board as investors
So
then?
by the time this podcast comes out, I'll be able to say that Anthony Joshua is one of our investors, and we've got some amazing things coming up in the next couple of years, loads of shoots and things with him. So that's going to be incredible.
Yeah.
Really excited for that. Who else have we got? So James Watt, the CEO of Brewdog,
Yeah.
and one of the co-founders of Aura Ring, which for me
That's
is amazing, because
very cool.
it's
I
probably
bet.
one of my favourite products.
Yeah.
So to have their belief, and also someone who was the CMO for Peloton for 4 years.
Oh, okay. How do you get in front of these
yeah.
people? Is it your network, or do you actively go out
yeah.
and expand your network?
I mean, I put a lot of effort into my network. I think it is probably the number one thing that any founder entrepreneur can do.
Agreed. They should teach it in school as well. I've
Again,
always said this, literally.
Should we start our own school?
Well, I think we should. I literally tell my daughter this, right? If you could start now, just going on LinkedIn, they look at me like I'm deranged, LinkedIn, compare that to Instagram or TikTok.
Yeah,
Why
it's
would I
not
want to go on
TikTok,
there? But it's so important, isn't it? Building
It
your
really
network.
is.
And I don't know about you, I actually did mine, accidentally through hosting a podcast and hosting live events. And before you know it, you're meeting amazing people with amazing stories to tell to a wider audience, and the opportunities that come through those people,
Yeah.
or those people ask you to, someone said to me, like an investor from Dragon's Den, as in Piers Linney, asked me for an introduction to Al Barrett from Grenade, the protein bar. That's hilarious. How do you two not know each other anyway? Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Two
Yeah.
successful entrepreneurs, but stuff like that happens. And you've obviously actively looked to grow your network.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of amazing members groups that I'm part of. So there's one in London called Adorium. They've been fantastic. I met a lot of my investors through there.
Okay.
Another called Baby Bathwater, which is based mainly in the US, but they do events around
I've
the world.
heard of them. Okay, yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Again, I've met some incredible people through those groups. I remember going to the first event, and I was a little bit not skeptical, but I was kind of worried, because sometimes these things, they cost a lot of money. And I remember one of my friends saying to me, I will be very surprised if in 6 months' time you can't directly link something back to what's come from going here. And he's completely right. It's
Really?
it's been the most amazing thing. And then we were talking about earlier, there's one where you're suddenly chatting to Richard Branson. He's saying like how cool Monk is. So yeah.
That is, yeah. I mean, how do you get an audience with somebody like that? You'd have to pay whatever it is.
Yeah. But so how have you grown your network? Is it just through the podcast, or?
It's through the podcast, and it's through it started when I was at Virgin Startup, and I started hosting events for them. And before you know it, you're liaising with the speakers. You're making sure that the audiences come to your event are being looked after, etc. And I'm not a natural networker, whereas my mum would be like the perfect person. She would just walk into a room, walk up to any group of people and go, "Hi, I'm Sandra. How do you know Alex, the host?" That would be like her line. And she's just learnt that way because she's been on her own, you know, split up from, you know, my father for so many years that she said I had to learn to do that. And she was, you know, working for an electronics business, and they would have events and you'd have like the Prince of Wales there. And she was just like, I just embraced this role. And that's what I do. Whereas me, if it was anyone else's networking event, I'd be the one stood talking to the wall with a warm beer in his hand. Because I would just, if I know someone, I'm away like that.
Yeah.
But if I don't, I kind of go into my introvert mode. But if I'm in charge of the event, I'm in extrovert mode. And that's definitely how I built my network. And then having the podcast was just an extension of a live event. Again,
Nice.
you're reaching out to people to come and speak at your events. Sorry, you're reaching out to people to come on your podcast. Then you're liaising with them and their team to share it to a wider audience. Then you're asking them, who would you think would be a great guest for my podcast? And they introduce someone equally pretty cool. So that's definitely how I've done it, you know, more by accident than by design. But over the years, I've obviously worked at that as well. But to start with, there was no plan to it whatsoever.
Yeah.
No.
That's amazing. Like your whole career and everything is really just built around network.
Yeah.
It's so important.
It is 100%. Yeah. Biggest challenge or setback you've had in the last 3 years then?
Ooh. Do you know what? Last year was actually a really tough year.
Snap. So many people. Carolyn Radford, who was here before, who owns Mansfield Town Football Club, she said the same thing. I speak to somebody who sells steel to property developers, to a guy who has multiple second-hand car dealers. Everybody had a hard year.
Yeah, it was tough.
Yeah.
I think for me, the hardest thing was fundraising in the climate last year. And also just, you know, as a founder of an early stage business, you're doing so much. You're trying to build hardware and software while fundraise, while build a team, while get ready for a launch. Like there's just...
Whilst getting to bed before 10 o'clock.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing that really tripped me up.
It's the time thing, isn't it?
But it was mainly fundraising. It was just really tough last year. And luckily at the end of the year, it really picked up.
Good.
But yeah, for a good few months, it was intense.
Okay. What piece of advice would you give to somebody to help them get from where they are, whatever situation that is, to where they want to be? What's helped propel you get from where you are to where you want to be?
I think, as we just spoke about, I would say network.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that is just the number one.
Surround yourself with the right people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think you've also just got to ask your network for things. Like even if, you know, after this conversation, I could say like, oh, hey, who are the 3 people you think I should meet? Or,
It's
you know,
a great line.
Yeah.
It's a great line.
It wasn't mine. I don't know who I stole it from. But
Okay. That's a really good line. It's not yours. Okay.
yeah, but I think also I remember at the beginning of the year, I read something and what was the quote? It was something about like, what happens if you actually just go for it? And I've always had that in the back of my mind. And, you know, I think...
I remember saying something about that.
If I was talking to a friend who was, I don't know, telling me about a problem or something they wanted to do, it would be so easy for me to be like, oh, you should just do this and tell them to shoot for the moon.
Yeah.
But as soon as it's like me talking to myself, I just kind of hold back. So just thinking about that, like, also, what is the worst thing that could happen?
Yeah. And again, it was something I read or saw a couple of years ago, and it was literally sort of like, unless there is a very high chance of you dying from doing this, why wouldn't you try it?
Yeah.
You know, because you've probably seen this as well, you know, those surveys of people who are, you know, at the end of their lives and what do you regret? You know, and it's the things that you didn't try.
Yeah.
You know, it's not... I wish I'd done another day at work. You know, I wish I'd done another day in the office. You know, it's just like nobody regrets that shit.
Yeah.
It's trying those things, and I you know, pass on those lessons to my kids now. So I had the opportunity to do this at the Welsh College of Music and Drama. I had this opportunity, and they're like, "What, act?" And I'm like, "Yeah." Got invited to do that, and I was too scared to do it. Got invited to go for the South Wales Choir, sing, which is hilarious. Turn that down, and you just think, you know, people, they kind of laugh at me for it, but you're like, well, who knows what different path life could have gone if I'd gone down one of those routes. You know, you just don't know. And what is the worst thing that can happen? If it isn't going to kill you, then bloody try it.
Yeah.
And having that bigger vision, I think, as well, because if you do, shoot for the moon, you might not get there, but equally you could land amongst the stars is like a kind of quotation, isn't it? And I kind of love that stuff. Have you read a book called 10x, not 2x recently?
No, I haven't.
Dan Sullivan.
Should I?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, my best friend just got me to read it, and it's I won't go into it now, but I'll show you afterwards. It's just that big sky thinking and making those leaps that instead of doubling turnover next year, we're actually going to 10x our turnover next year. Well, how do we do it? It's actually easier, by freeing yourself up.
Yeah.
I think you like it. It's a good one.
I love a book recommendation from someone.
Good.
Absolutely love
I
it.
totally
You actually
recommend
just reminded me of a quote I saw yesterday. I won't paraphrase it, but it said something about, imagine taking your 10-year plan and just saying, right, how can we do that in a year?
Yes.
And actually, again, it's almost like, what's the worst that can happen? You're going to get further than the team who did exactly the same thing, but just tried to achieve it over 10 years.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember I've written it down somewhere as well. It's one of the world's most famous investors. And he said, whenever someone comes to him with a proposition and there's like a 3-year, a 5-year, a 10-year plan, he goes, I want you to go away, rewrite that and try and do it in 6 months. The 6 months sounds horrendous, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Because, but I think a year, yeah. What can you kind of squeeze down and accelerate? What was the one thing that you needed personally to screw it, just do it and get from where you were to where you are now? Was it a quality? Was it somebody? Was it a quote? Was it a physical thing?
I think one of the things that really got me through was a book called The Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz.
Okay,
you
I know
have to
who
read
Ben
it.
Horowitz is. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's incredible. But there's a chapter in it called The Struggle. And it is the best, 3-4 pages of writing. And it was just like therapy reading it.
Okay.
If you have ever had like a really hard day, I just went and read that. And I remember reading it out to one of my best friends who's, not an entrepreneur. She has an amazing job. And as I finished reading it, she just looked at me and she's like, are you okay? She's like, that sounds horrible. Like the founder journey is really tough. But that book for me was it was amazing.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. Are you currently where you want to be?
Oh, no, absolutely not.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
No.
Only because I think that is the right answer.
Yeah.
No matter who you are, and I'm sure Richard Branson would probably give the same answer. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I wonder, do you think anyone would actually say yes?
I've never had anyone say yes to that yet. No.
I wonder whether that's like a reflection of the kind of guests you have on, people that are running their own businesses. And that
aspirational. I think so.
Yeah.
Whereas, if you maybe asked certain section or a cross section of society, maybe you get a lot more yeses.
Yeah, I hope one day I'll say yes to that.
Yeah. Okay. What's been one of the biggest learnings you've taken away so far of a 3-year journey, would you say?
I think learning to delegate has been such a big one.
Yeah.
And I'm not good at it yet.
Okay.
But I'm trying to get there. But I think that has been a really big learning curve. Also, I've never built hardware or software before. So, every day I'm just doing things that are completely new. And I've had 2 businesses before, but yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
but neither of them were anything like this.
No.
But I think as long as you just have that relentless drive to knowing you have to get to where you want to be and you just won't give up, then you'll get there.
It's funny because it never, and maybe it is again a reflection of who I speak to, but in my mind, not doing the thing is not even an option. Not getting to the end. It might be a pivot and go in a completely different direction, but I'm still doing the thing. Whereas for other people, maybe that is a thing. And it's the same for me, whether I was chatting to one of the guys from Who Dares Wins, Staz, and I was saying, like, doing the marathon, because he was training for London this year, and I was talking about New York and stuff, and he was giving an example of when he was in physical pain, mental pain, he would take himself away to this place and build like his dream house. And he goes, like, now we're working on the loft and we're doing. And I was like, I love that. Because I said, like, when I did the marathon, I took myself away, but I was like I can't ever get this word right. Oh my God.
Compartmentalizing?
That word.
Yes.
I did it with him as well when I did I couldn't say the word. Doing that, because I'm not going to try it, with the pain and just going, okay, that right quad's shutting down, this left calf, and I'm just compartmentalizing it. I did it. There you go. Putting that away, whereas he actually took himself away to another place entirely and starts building his dream house. And I'm like, that's so cool. Where'd you get that from? You know?
I like that. I'll do that next time I run on a treadmill.
It's a really interesting one, though, isn't it? Yeah, and I think that's just never an option. And I was saying that to him, that just when I did the marathon, it was never an option that I was going to quit, even though you're in so much physical pain, mental, you're in completely another planet. Finishing, even if it meant, you know, walking, crawling, you just have to get to the end. But for other people, maybe it's not. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I think, especially when it comes to at least running a business, maybe not a marathon, but you have to be a certain type of person.
Yeah.
Because people don't understand what you actually have to go through. People think, oh, you just got to give up some evenings and weekends, but it's not even scratching the surface.
No.
Like the mental isolation and stuff you have to go through.
Yeah.
And you just have to give up all of your mental bandwidth and your sanity. Like I've had it when I've been out with friends and we're having dinner on like the rare occasion you can get out to do that, and they're talking at me and my mind is just like a million miles elsewhere.
Same.
And you just have to sacrifice so much, and you're just constantly, it's like a duck treading water. And you have to really be prepared to go through it.
And do you feel 3 years in and you've got your first production going out in June, do you feel that's almost like the start of another journey, or is it just
Yeah. Well,
okay.
I kind of feel like it's the journey just beginning. Like all of this has almost been just like the grunt work to get there. Yeah.
Okay.
And of course, there'll be a whole different tsunami of shit, to put it politely. But I just can't wait, because then we can do so much more. You know, we have amazing partnerships and stuff lined up, like Fairmont Hotels, and there's an F1 team we're talking to, and loads of amazing talent. But until we have a product, it's really hard to actually.
It must be
much.
Yeah, it's that physical. I always remember with the live events I was doing, those live events that I did with the founders who had a physical product were always so popular, because they'd always bring product to the event, and people can literally sample it, and they get it. It's there. It's a drink, it's a food, whatever it is, they can get their hands on it. Whereas, like you say, if you're selling something that's a sketch on something, or it's on a laptop, it's a very different proposition trying to sell a deck, isn't it, than anything.
That's for you.
Oh, thank you very
Talking
much.
of physical products.
A physical product. Look at that.
There is your own monk beanie.
There you go. How am I looking?
Looks great.
There's a camera. I'll wear that on the way home. Thank you very much.
For your dips in the sea.
Yeah, I've saw people wearing them in your monks in your HQ.
Oh, yes, yeah, in our
There
studio,
you go,
yeah.
in your studio,
Yeah. I actually just had 3,000 of them delivered. No, sorry,
Wow.
300 of them
300
delivered today.
delivered, okay.
2 massive boxes. I saw it on my way out and thought, I just can't deal
Brilliant.
with that right now.
Thank you so much.
So, yeah.
So for people who want to find out more about Monk, you mentioned off air earlier that people can go to the website,
Yes.
discovermonk.com.
Yes, correct.
There you go. And they can pre-order.
Yeah, we've just gone live with pre-orders. And until... So our full launch price is $5,995, but at the moment they're retailing at $4,995 plus free delivery, which is worth £450, £499.
And is that UK only, or is that?
Yeah, so we're starting UK only, and our plan is to launch in the US just in a few months' time.
Is it?
Yeah.
Ooh, didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah,
it's a new
so
one.
basically a dual launch.
Okay.
Which turns out is quite a lot of work.
Funny you say that.
Yeah.
So do you have? And I guess this is part of your future planning. Then do you then have like a satellite over there, and you have somebody over there that's
we're
sales?
just figuring out that piece. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Amazing. Laura Fullerton, discover, Mark. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching this episode of Screw It, Just Do It. Let me know what you thought of it in the comments below this video. Has this episode helped move you closer to where you want to be? All that I ask is that if you enjoyed this episode and that it's moved you closer to getting to where you want to be, that you share this episode so that it helps one other person do just the same. Just ask yourself what small action will move you forward to get you from where you are, then screw it and just do it. Until next time.